The home center was like a toy box full of endless possibilities. It was supposed to be the start of a fun weekend morning for the protagonist, but instead she ended up in a strange place along with the home center. Not long before that, she finally got a day off after a busy week. She went to Home Center Dama, one of the few places in her small town that helped her relax. It was her favorite spot. She walked in excitedly, thinking she was the first customer of the day. But when she looked around, no one was there. She wondered if the store was closed, but the entrance was open as usual. That's when she remembered an anime she had watched once. It showed a world inside a mirror where everything was the same except there were no people. She shook off the thought and laughed at herself. Then she saw animals in the pet area, which was normal, but it still felt strange that there were no workers or other customers. Just as she started to question what was happening, the building suddenly shook like there was a huge earthquake. She got scared but quickly came up with an explanation. She guessed there had been a warning she didn't hear, and everyone else had already left. She called herself silly and rushed outside, thinking now wasn't the time to be reminded of an anime. Suddenly, she felt dizzy and passed out. She woke up to a blonde woman shouting at her. The woman looked upset. Our protagonist thought the blonde looked cute and asked if she was the new part-time worker. The blonde looked confused and annoyed. First, a building appeared out of nowhere, and now there was someone inside it who had passed out. She didn't know what to do. The protagonist got up and said she was okay. She didn't know why the ground shook, but since she felt fine, she decided to leave before anything else strange happened. As she ran away, worried that her parents might be looking for her, she suddenly stopped. In front of her was a wall. She stood still, confused. She turned around to look at the home center behind her and was shocked by what she saw. She asked herself what was going on. Then a blonde woman appeared and asked if she had finally returned to reality. The protagonist still thought the blonde was just a store worker, but then she noticed the sword the woman was carrying and the equipment she was wearing. The blonde asked if she was human. The girl looked at her and asked if she was a cosplayer. The blonde seemed confused and asked if being a cosplayer was a real job. The woman introduced herself as Fiona without giving a last name. The protagonist was surprised at how well Fiona spoke Japanese even though she looked like a foreigner. The protagonist then introduced herself as Maho Saeki. When Fiona heard her last name, she asked if Maho was a noble. Maho said she wasn't. Fiona then asked if Maho was a mage, but Maho thought she meant Meiji, the name of a snack company. Maho asked if there were other people around, but Fiona said she wasn't sure because she hadn't checked everywhere yet. Maho then asked why a wall had suddenly appeared in the area. Fiona told her that the wall had always been there. It was the building that suddenly appeared. As Maho grew more confused, Fiona said she had ended up there because of a trapped treasure chest. She explained that those kinds of things sometimes appear and said she had been careless. Maho began to connect the clues. Treasure chests, traps, teleporting. Then she looked at Fiona again and started to believe she wasn't a cosplayer after all. Maho asked where they were. Fiona calmly said they were inside the Melquodia Dungeon. Maho didn't know where that was. She started to think that maybe she had been moved to another world. She even wondered if she had died during the earthquake. But if that were true, why did the home center come with her? She figured she might be dreaming. To check, she began pinching her cheeks hard. She pulled at them like they were rubber, like Luffy. Fiona asked what she was doing, and Maho said it was just a Japanese habit. Fiona was about to suggest what they should do next, but then a loud growl echoed through the dungeon. Maho thought it might be Fiona's stomach. Fiona quietly admitted that she hadn't eaten in 3 days. Maho was shocked and quickly ran to the home center. She grabbed a shopping cart and started thinking about what food to get for Fiona. Since Fiona hadn't eaten in days, Maho thought porridge would be the best choice. She looked for the kind that comes in a boil-in-the-bag package and also searched for a stove and some water. When she returned, she gave Fiona a bottle of water first. But Fiona didn't know how to use it. She looked confused, not knowing how to drink from it. Maho asked what was wrong, and Fiona asked how to open it. Maho twisted the cap off and Fiona was surprised. Maho then cooked the instant porridge in a pot of boiling water. She also added some bonito flakes on top. When the porridge was ready, Maho warned Fiona to be careful because it was hot. Fiona asked what it was. Maho explained it was rice porridge and said it's something people usually eat when they're sick. But it wasn't anything strange. She began to wonder if Fiona was just not used to Japanese food. Fiona took a bite and to her surprise, it tasted really good. Even though it was hot, she kept eating quickly. Maho told her not to rush because there was plenty more. Fiona ended up eating a lot. Maho asked if she had really been that hungry and Fiona quietly said yes. She said the food was really delicious and that she felt saved. Then she started crying. She said she thought she was going to die because she had gone so long without food. That's when Maho realized Fiona had been stuck in this place for 3 days without anything to eat or drink. She must have felt scared and hopeless. Maho thought that if it had been her, she wouldn't have lasted even a day. So she leaned over to Fiona, comforted her, and told her she did a good job holding on. Fiona eventually fell asleep. Maho started to worry that Fiona might catch a cold, so she decided to look for a blanket in the store. While searching, she also remembered the small animals inside. She grabbed some food and fed the pets. Maho had a feeling before, but now she was sure. The animals were stuck in this situation too. When she looked around again, she noticed the store had many different kinds of pets for sale. She realized she needed to take care of them properly. Luckily, she knew how to do that because her parents used to keep many pets at home. As Maho walked past the shelves, she noticed something strange. She remembered taking a lot of items earlier, but now the shelves looked full again. Then she realized she got distracted and forgot about the blanket. While walking around, Maho started to feel something. She was completely alone. Even though the power line was cut, the store still had electricity. Later, while walking a dog, Maho found a large door. She thought it might be the exit of the dungeon. She figured Fiona had already seen it too and might be having trouble opening the heavy-looking door. Maho wondered if a small truck could pull it open. Curious, she grabbed the handle to try it herself. To her surprise, the door opened easily. Behind the door was a flight of stairs. She let the dog play nearby and went down the steps. As she walked, she began to hear some sounds. She remembered Fiona saying they were inside a dungeon, so she guessed they were underground. Maho started to wonder if this place was really safe. After walking a few steps, she thought about turning back. But then she noticed another door not too far away. She opened it, hoping it led outside, but it didn't. Instead, her eyes widened as she saw something unexpected. Fiona had just woken up and noticed that someone had put a blanket over her. She remembered crying in front of Maho and felt embarrassed. She thought she was weak. When she looked around, Maho was gone. Fiona started to panic and searched the store. She didn't want to be alone again. She looked everywhere, but Maho was nowhere to be found. Feeling tired and worried, Fiona noticed that the door was open. This surprised and confused her. She ran through the door and down the stairs. That door was supposed to be sealed with magic, and even she couldn't open it before. She wondered if Maho had somehow done it, but it didn't make sense that she would leave by herself. Fiona wished she had explained things to Maho earlier. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she saw Maho kneeling in front of a huge dragon. It looked like Maho was taking a picture of the dragon's sleeping face with her phone. Ugh, millennials. Fiona froze in fear. The dragon in front of them wasn't just any red dragon, it was the Dragon King. This creature could understand human language, use ancient magic, and leave destruction wherever it went. It was the kind of monster people talked about in old stories. Some said it even destroyed a powerful kingdom long ago. Even among dragons, it was something else. Fiona wondered if the Dragon King was the final boss of the dungeon. But while Fiona was scared, Maho looked amazed. Fiona didn't understand what Maho was thinking. She even wondered if the dragon had put Maho under some kind of spell. But the dragon wasn't doing anything. It was just sleeping. Even though Fiona was scared, she slowly walked forward, trying not to make a sound. She kept wondering why Maho was here and why she wasn't afraid. Maho finally noticed her and asked her to take a look at the dragon. She called it beautiful and acted like it wasn't a big deal. Fiona was shocked by how calm she was and tried to pull her away to safety. Maho didn't want to leave, but Fiona dragged her all the way back to their base. Once they returned, Maho said the dragon was amazing. Fiona, still angry, asked her what she meant. Was she talking about the dragon or the fact that Fiona had to carry her? Maho said both and proudly showed off a photo she had taken of the dragon. She started talking like a total anime fan, using words Fiona didn't even understand. Fiona asked her if she wasn't scared at all. Maho said she guessed she was scared, but added that being eaten by a dragon didn't sound like such a bad way to go. Fiona thought that was a weird thing to say. She told Maho that she didn't want to die. Maho agreed but said the dragon was just so fascinating that she forgot to be careful. She promised to be more careful next time. Fiona scolded her for being so careless. Maho told her not to be mad because she still didn't understand what was happening. Fiona was shocked. Maho didn't even know where they were. Fiona reminded her. They were in Melquodia, the biggest and most dangerous dungeon in the world. Even worse, they were already deep in the lower levels, way past dozens of floors. The only way to survive now was to fight through stronger and stronger monsters. Maho said she got it. They had to clear the dungeon. But she asked Fiona how she even knew they were at the bottom. Fiona explained that the deeper they went, the stronger the magic around them became. The monsters also got more dangerous. The dragon they had just seen wasn't a normal boss. It was something far stronger. Fiona said it was the Dragon King, a legendary creature. It was a living reminder that there were monsters humans couldn't beat. That's why she thought escaping might be impossible. But Maho just said dragons were amazing and that she was happy to see one up close. Fiona couldn't believe she still wasn't scared. She asked Maho what she would do if the dragon actually woke up. Fiona recalled noticing a door behind the sleeping dragon. She started to wonder if they should just avoid the dragon and go through the door instead. But Maho thought the dragon might wake up if they opened it. She said they might need to defeat the dragon first to move on. Fiona realized Maho was probably right. She dropped to her knees, feeling hopeless. She had already given up and thought she was going to die. She started crying, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a cigar. After lighting it, she took a deep puff and let out a sigh that sounded like she was in deep despair. Maho was surprised and asked if Fiona was really a smoker. Fiona kept crying and asked what she should do. She started calling out to the gods and spirits, begging them to defeat the dragon for her. Maho began to wonder if Fiona was just acting strange, but then she had an idea and asked if maybe defeating the dragon was actually their only option. Fiona reminded her that no normal person could beat a creature like that. Maho thought maybe they could become friends with the dragon by giving it food, but Fiona shouted that they were the food. Maho said she would be fine with that, but Fiona definitely wasn't. She said there was no other choice. They had to fight the dragon. Fiona suddenly stopped crying and looked confused. She asked Maho to repeat what she just said. Maho told her again. They were going to defeat the dragon. Fiona, still confused, asked how. The dog from before finally showed up. Maho explained that her father had always been a bit unusual. He kept all kinds of bugs and small animals at home, changed the house by himself, and sometimes left for trips without telling anyone. When he did that, he wouldn't come back for a long time. Because of her dad, Maho had grown to love going to home centers. When she heard stories about his travels, she started to want to explore the world too. That was why she didn't want to waste her time in this new world by just sitting around doing nothing, or worse, waiting to die. She believed there was still a whole world she hadn't seen yet, and she was determined to fight the monster. She also knew Fiona wanted to leave the dungeon too, and Fiona agreed. Fiona asked if Maho could really do something about the dragon. Maho said it might take some planning, but reminded her that living things can die more easily than people think. When Fiona asked if Maho was strong, Maho admitted that she wasn't. Fiona wondered why Maho still acted so relaxed, as if she didn't understand how powerful the dragon was. But Maho believed Fiona was the one who didn't understand. She said they had the strongest backpack with them, the home center that had come along with her into this world. She believed they would be fine because the store had everything they needed. At that moment, the girls were in a place known as the Dungeon of Ends. It had grown into the biggest dungeon town in the world. Feeling excited, Maho raised her fist and believed with all her heart that they would make it out alive. This was the story of Maho the mage and Fiona the dungeon explorer. Fiona soon learned what a home center was. She realized it was a large store from Maho's world, and somehow, it had been brought into this world along with her. Maho explained that dragons didn't exist in her world. Earlier, while exploring, Maho found something that looked like a tombstone with a big gem in the center. Fiona guessed it could be a magic jewel that granted wishes. She said she had wished for help, and then the building appeared. At the time, she thought it was just a story and didn't take it seriously. Now, she started to wonder if her wish had caused all of this to happen. After hearing that, Maho understood that Fiona's wish might have been the reason they were transported to another world. She didn't say it out loud, but Fiona already knew it was her fault. Maho simply told her she wasn't angry. They both noticed the jewel now had cracks in it, so they figured it couldn't be used again. Fiona talked about the great Melquodia Dungeon. It was a very dangerous place with powerful monsters. So far, people had only been able to clear up to the 14th floor. There were other dungeons across the world too. Some had 10 floors, while the deepest had 30. Some dungeons hadn't even been fully explored. In most dungeons, there was still a chance to be rescued, but Melquodia was so large that just the first floor was enough to call it one of the world's greatest dungeons. Because of how difficult it was, not many adventurers liked to go there. Being told to start from the very bottom would make most people feel hopeless. Maho said they could figure things out, but first they had to deal with the dragon waiting upstairs. Fiona felt nervous, but Maho said she had a plan. First, she wanted to check something. She walked over to the shelves filled with rice porridge. Fiona recognized the food. It was what Maho had given her earlier. Maho said Fiona had eaten almost all of it. Fiona felt embarrassed and asked her not to bring it up. Maho, however, was more interested in how strange the shelves looked. After cooking so much, there should have been very little left. Fiona agreed and started to wonder if the shelves restocked themselves. Maho joked that maybe it was the work of ghosts. Fiona calmly reminded her there were no ghosts or monsters on this floor. Maho felt a little let down by Fiona's calm response, but she did learn that some monsters had ghost-like types. Fiona decided to try something out. She grabbed a few bags of granola from the shelf. The girls sat and watched the empty spot on the shelf for a while, even eating snacks as they waited. After a few minutes, a new bag of granola appeared. Fiona was shocked. It was just as Maho had expected. Even the expiration date was the same. Maho said it was amazing and confirmed that the shelf had an endless supply of food. She said that if things ever got really bad, they could survive in the dungeon for years. Now that they didn't have to worry about food, Maho asked Fiona if she wanted to stay and work with her forever. Fiona quickly said no. Maho looked a little sad but said she was only joking. She told Fiona they were ready to get things done and asked her to help with some ingredients. The girls started mixing different things, and soon it looked like they were cooking a dangerous kind of soup. The smell was so bad they had to wear gas masks. Fiona asked what it was. Maho calmly explained that she had taken chemicals from cigarettes, added rat poison, pesticides, sulfuric acid, and something called Mystery Chemical All-Stars to make a deadly poison. Fiona was shocked and asked how dangerous it was. Maho said that just one spoonful could kill a person. Fiona couldn't believe it. She thought the store only had normal everyday items. Maho said it was still an everyday item in a way. She explained that the difference between medicine and poison was just how much you used. Then she gave Fiona some cigarettes and asked if she wanted to smoke one. Maho even lit it with a lighter. Fiona was amazed to see a tool that could create fire so easily. She took a puff and said it wasn't too bad. Maho realized that magical items did exist in this world, and she guessed that a lighter might be valuable here. Fiona was also surprised. Then Maho remembered seeing Fiona light her cigar before using fire magic. Suddenly she asked Fiona to take off her clothes. Fiona, who was now smoking 2 cigarettes, was too shocked to speak at first and asked why. Maho said she just wanted to see if their bodies were different since they came from different worlds. Fiona found it strange that Maho was being so polite all of a sudden. Maho said she only wanted to check and not because she wanted to see someone from another world without clothes. Fiona noticed Maho moving her hands in a weird way and asked if she was just being a pervert, and if this had anything to do with defeating the dragon. Maho said it did. Fiona gave up. Maho said that since they were both girls, it wasn't something to be embarrassed about. She even asked if she should take off her clothes too. Fiona told her not to. Maho had brought out some basic medical tools like a stethoscope and thermometer. Fiona took off her clothes and Maho thought she looked a bit inappropriate. She noticed that Fiona looked the same and that her pulse and heartbeat were normal. Maho wondered if there was a special organ for magic but wasn't sure since she wasn't a doctor. Maho asked Fiona to face her and leaned in to touch her forehead with hers. Fiona was surprised and blushed. Maho thought Fiona felt a bit warm. She also checked something lower and Fiona felt it, asking Maho to stop. With her face bruised from Fiona's punch, Maho realized that Fiona was just like her. Fiona asked if Maho had figured something out. Maho confirmed that despite coming from different worlds, they were both human. So, the dragon upstairs must also be a living creature. Fiona disagreed, calling it a monster, nothing like a human. Maho suggested that the cracked jewel might help them defeat it. She believed the jewel and the treasure trap Fiona found were meant for humans, not monsters. It seemed strange that such things were deep inside a place meant for monsters. If they thought about it another way, there was no reason to leave an enemy they couldn't defeat. This meant the dragon should be beatable. Maho said that whoever made the dungeon probably intended for the dragon to be defeated. Fiona didn't know why dungeons existed, but now she thought there must be a reason for them. Maho said the dragon was a living being, and things like poison and temperature changes could kill it. However, Fiona had a serious question. She asked how they could get the dragon to drink the poison. Maho was stunned and didn't know how to answer. She hit her head on the tombstone, realizing she hadn't even thought of that. The dragon snored loudly but kept its mouth shut. For now, Maho decided to set aside the poisoning plan and come up with a new one. Fiona couldn't believe they had gone through so much, only for the poison idea to be dropped. Fiona asked Maho if she had another plan ready. Maho said she did, and it was something simple but very powerful. Fiona was confused and asked why Maho even made poison. Maho explained that her idea was a bit risky and took Fiona to a self-service gas station next to the home center. Fiona remembered seeing it when they first arrived. Maho then asked if the world they were in had anything like attribute canceling. Fiona didn't understand, so Maho gave an example, like how fire is weak against water. Fiona didn't think anything like that existed here. Maho realized that this world didn't have those kinds of rules. She then told Fiona she would show her how dangerous her plan really was. Maho opened a large can and told Fiona to stay back. Fiona noticed that earlier, Maho had been shaking the can around like she was doing a strange ritual. Maho explained that the can was filled with a flammable liquid called gasoline. She lit a lighter and explained how gasoline turns into vapor, mixes with air, and explodes when a flame is added. Then she threw the lit lighter toward the can. It exploded. Fiona was shocked and asked if it was some kind of explosion magic. Maho said it wasn't, even less than half a cup of gasoline caused that blast. Maho then shared her plan. They would bring all the gasoline they had and set off a huge explosion inside the boss room. That was her simple plan. But she warned Fiona that gasoline was dangerous and had to be used carefully. Fiona understood completely. So the girls started plan number 2. First, they poured gasoline into containers. Then they made trips up and down the stairs, moving quickly but quietly so they wouldn't wake the dragon. It took several days to carry everything. They also added a bucket filled with nails, bolts, axes, and other sharp things. They hoped it would add more damage when the explosion went off. Maho was having a hard time carrying everything. Fiona offered to carry more and told Maho to take a break. Maho asked how Fiona could be so strong, and Fiona casually said she had spent a lot of time getting used to dungeons, even if she didn't look like it. People go into dungeons to fight monsters, absorb their magic, and get stronger. This process was called dungeon acclimatization. It was kind of like leveling up in video games. After carrying all the supplies, Fiona asked if they were finished. Maho said the next step was working without clothes. Fiona paused, confused, and nervously asked what Maho meant. She couldn't believe she had to be naked again, especially after Maho had made her strip earlier. Maho confirmed it. Fiona asked if Maho was actually just being a creep. Maho explained that wasn't true this time. If they caused static electricity while working, it could kill them instantly. That's when Fiona realized Maho had been acting like a creep the last time. Maho said she would work alone this time and told Fiona to rest since she had already done a lot. Fiona hesitated, then said she would help anyway. She didn't want to leave Maho alone, and she was worried something bad might happen if Maho worked by herself. Maho smiled. Fiona asked why, and Maho said it was nothing. She just told Fiona that they should do their best. Maho added that in her country, working naked together was actually a real thing. The two girls took off their clothes and poured gasoline into containers placed every 5 meters. At that temperature, the gasoline wasn't supposed to turn into gas yet. The floor was shaped like an arena, with the dragon lying in the center, 1 level below. This setup made it easier for an explosion to happen if the gas spread. The dragon continued to sleep. Maho believed it wouldn't attack unless someone hit it first. They still needed to handle the gas turning into vapor, mixing with air, and then setting it on fire. Maho thought about using electricity, but it was risky to bring power from the lower floor. Still, she felt confident that their plan would work. The home improvement store had everything they needed. The girls brought in a lithium-ion battery. These kinds of batteries didn't catch fire easily, so they were safe to use in that situation. Maho checked the battery to make sure it still worked fine. To help the gasoline turn into vapor, they placed small heaters into the containers. Then they set up large fans and connected them to the battery, but didn't turn them on yet. For the ignition, they used a spark plug from a portable stove. They attached it to a dial timer and set it to start in 11 hours. After that, they poured the remaining gasoline all over the floor and turned on the power. The heaters would warm up the gasoline and the fans would mix the gas with the air. The timer was ready. All they had to do now was wait. Maho shut the door behind them. Fiona was unsure if the plan would really defeat the dragon. Maho said they could come up with something else if it didn't work. She also had a backup plan, so there was no need to worry. Maho explained that the real credit went to the home improvement store, or more accurately, to human science. Still, she was a bit jealous that Fiona was strong enough to carry all those gasoline containers. 11 hours later, just a few minutes before the timer reached 0, Maho said it was time. She also said she would cry if her second plan failed. Fiona began praying to the gods and spirits, hoping everything would go well. Maho saw Fiona looking stressed again, smoking and crying. She told Fiona that praying wouldn't help. Then she asked Fiona to count down with her. The two of them counted from 10. At the same time, the dragon slowly woke up. It looked around as if it noticed something. Then it saw the fans blowing at full power. When the timer hit 0 and the girls shouted, a loud explosion happened in the room. The blast hit the dragon directly. The girls felt the ground shake from the huge explosion. Fiona asked if the plan worked. Maho said maybe, but the door and ceiling still looked normal. Fiona thought about checking the room, but Maho stopped her. She explained that behind the door was a place with no oxygen. If they opened it now, all the air from their side would rush in and cause a giant fire. Maho said they should wait a little longer. Fiona didn't really understand, but she agreed. Maho also wondered where the air in the dungeon even came from. It was still a mystery to her. But since they were in another world, she decided not to worry about it. If there had been no air, they would have died from lack of oxygen long ago. The same was true for the dragon. It had been breathing, which was actually the key part of Maho's plan. Even if the dragon survived the blast, she wondered how it could keep living without air to breathe. Fiona kept praying behind her, still with a cigarette in her mouth. Meanwhile, the dragon lay unconscious on the ground, but its claws still moved slightly. The dragon didn't have any real memories. It had only come into existence the moment the dungeon was finished. Its only purpose was to wait for strong warriors to enter through the gate and fight them with everything it had. It didn't even know how much time had passed since then. The dragon wasn't clueless. It noticed the intruders right away. They were the first living beings it had ever seen besides itself. But the gate hadn't opened fully, and what stood before it were people so weak that it believed it could wipe them out just by breathing on them. The dragon didn't see them as warriors. To it, they were just small creatures. Nothing to take seriously. Still, it became curious when it saw the things the girls brought into its room. The dragon had knowledge. It understood that weaker beings often gave gifts or offerings to stronger ones. So it figured that's what this was and went back to sleep. But 11 hours later, the dragon suddenly woke up. Something felt wrong. A horrible smell had spread through the room. The dragon wondered if offerings were supposed to smell that bad. It didn't sense any danger because it didn't see the girls as threats. but the strange feeling in the air kept growing worse. Not knowing what was really going on, the dragon got ready to fight. At that exact moment, just as the girls finished counting down, the timer in the room reached 0, and everything exploded. 10 days later, Maho told Fiona it was time to open the door. But Fiona just wanted to stay in bed and relax. Ever since they had set off the explosion, the two of them had been in lazy mode, waiting for the effects to go away. The effects should have worn off by now, but Fiona had turned into a neat and didn't want to leave her bed. Maho couldn't get her to move. For now, Maho spent her time feeding the animals. She named the dogs and cats Pochi and Tama. The lizard was called Kaiser, and the fish was named Arrow. Maho had given names to the pets in the animal corner, though she didn't bother naming all of them. While waiting, Maho stayed busy taking care of the animals and the plants. Fiona, on the other hand, had developed an interest in car videos. It seemed like she could understand the words in the videos, but she didn't really notice it. Maho kept wondering how they could understand each other so well, even though they were from different worlds. She figured it was just another one of those strange things about being in a different world. Maho stopped thinking about it and finally pulled Fiona out of bed so they could check the dungeon boss room. Fiona listened with her sharp hearing and said she couldn't hear anything. Maho said she would open the door while Fiona, feeling scared, stayed back. Still, Maho noticed Fiona wouldn't let go of her arm. Fiona said the door was locked with magic and for some reason only Maho could open it. Fiona was worried about what might be waiting for them, but Maho had no choice. Fiona nervously asked if they would be okay. Maho checked the oxygen meter and said there was nothing wrong. They opened the door and saw a pile of rubble inside. Maho noticed the dragon lying there and wondered if it was dead. Fiona checked it and her eyes grew wide with fear. The dragon was still alive, but just barely. Its body was half covered in rubble, and it looked like it didn't have much time left. Fiona said it was still breathing. Maho was shocked and asked if she was sure. Fiona said dead monsters usually turned into crystals. Maho found that strange, but looking at the dragon, she agreed it was close to death. She wondered what caused it. Was it the pressure, the heat, the wounds, or maybe it couldn't breathe? Maho told Fiona to finish it with her sword. But Fiona was no longer beside her. She had already run off to the home center. Soon she came back, breathing hard, carrying buckets. Maho was surprised. Fiona told her to move out of the way. Then she threw a dark liquid from the buckets onto the dragon. Maho was shocked at first, but then realized it was poison. Fiona told her to help because they needed to make the dragon drink all of it. Maho calmly said the dragon wasn't breathing anymore. Fiona said it didn't matter. They had to finish it before the dragon healed itself with restoration magic. Maho was surprised to hear dragons could do that. The two of them poured all the buckets onto the dragon. Maho wasn't sure if it would work. Fiona reminded her that she said the poison was strong. She said poison magic keeps hurting over time. Maho thought that sounded like something from a video game. Then the dragon's huge claw started turning black. The dark color began to spread across its body. They watched as the dragon slowly turned completely black. In just a moment, the dragon vanished and turned into magic crystals. Both girls were shocked by what just happened. Maho was confused and Fiona couldn't even speak clearly. Fiona hugged Maho and said they finally beat the dragon. Maho wondered if this was what Fiona meant about turning things into crystals. Fiona was surprised to see large crystals and started to celebrate. Maho felt a bit let down that they didn't turn into a statue for display, but she was still glad the dragon was gone. Fiona began drooling while holding the crystals. Maho asked if they were worth a lot. Fiona flinched and told Maho to take as many as she wanted, saying she didn't really help much. Then Fiona hesitantly said she would just take 10%, but quickly changed it to 25%, then 50%. Maho thought Fiona might be poor and told her to let it go since they didn't even know how valuable the crystals really were. Fiona looked like she was about to cry. Still, Maho thought it would be a waste not to sell such big crystals. Then she remembered the level up thing, but realized she didn't feel any different. Fiona guessed it was because Maho didn't hit the dragon herself. Maho felt disappointed that beating the boss in a tricky way didn't work out. She figured it was like in games where the final boss gives no experience points. So she accepted that she would stay at level 1 for now. As they went back upstairs, Maho started getting tired and complained that there were no save points or anything to travel faster. Fiona didn't understand, so Maho explained she meant places to rest or shortcuts. Fiona then said monsters don't show up near teleport monuments, and those can be used to move between floors. Maho was surprised to hear that. But then, Fiona seemed even more shocked about something. While Maho was happy they could now escape without going through every floor, Fiona nervously agreed. Maho stared at Fiona while reaching for the next floor's door. When they opened the big door, they saw a field full of flowers. Maho was surprised to see a flower garden inside a dungeon, but Fiona quickly stopped her from walking forward. She explained that these flowers were called hydra weeds, a type of poisonous plant that never dies and grows back right after being cut. Just touching them could paralyze a person's whole body. Maho realized that anything could happen inside a dungeon. Fiona started to worry. They needed strong fire magic to get rid of the poisonous weeds, but they didn't have that kind of power. Maho thought for a moment and then smiled. She asked Fiona what she was so worried about. She said it was true that using magic to make fire was hard in a dungeon, but they were different. She reminded Fiona that they had all kinds of tools thanks to the power of the home center. Maho changed into gardening clothes and brought out some gardening tools. Then she pulled out a kerosene weed flamethrower that cost 25,000 yen and began burning the weeds. Fiona, who was holding the safety harness tied to Maho, asked how things were going. Maho said everything was fine but told Fiona to pull her back right away if something went wrong. Just then, Maho felt something strange and stepped back. She said she felt itchy and wondered if it was because of poison. Fiona noticed that Maho was still moving normally. Maho said her body felt hot and blamed herself for being careless. Fiona then figured out what was really happening. She asked if Maho was leveling up. She explained that the hydra weeds were like monsters and dropped magic crystals. Maho became excited when she heard that she was leveling up. She asked if Fiona wanted some of the experience points, but Fiona said no for now, so Maho could get used to the dungeon acclimatization on her own. After hearing that, Maho didn't hold back and cleared the entire dungeon floor of weeds. Fiona said she was impressed and called Maho reliable. But Maho said the home center was the one that deserved the credit, not her. She also pointed out that Fiona was the one who never forgot to pick up the magic crystals. Maho decided to leave a few hydra weeds behind in case they would be useful later. Maho then happily led the way to the next floor, but as expected, she got tired right away. She complained that it was just too tiring. Fiona thought that Maho still needed more time to get used to the dungeon. She suggested resting first, but Maho wanted to at least see what the next floor looked like. Maho had hoped she would become super strong, but she still got tired too easily. When they opened the door to the next floor, both of them were confused. Everything past the door was completely dark. The girls stood still, staring into complete darkness. Maho figured it made sense, they were underground after all, but it hadn't been this dark before. Fiona told Maho to leave it to her and used light magic to make a small glowing ball. She sent it into the darkness, but it disappeared almost right away. Fiona was shocked. She didn't know what to do at first, but then realized they had entered a dark zone. She explained that sometimes people end up in places like this, places where no light can stay, and magic lights vanish as soon as they appear. She also said that using torches wasn't very helpful during battles because holding one would mean one less free hand. That's when Maho realized something important. Torches still worked. She told Fiona it wasn't a big deal and asked if what they really needed was just a stronger light. Maho said she already had something for that. Since they hadn't taken any breaks yet, she suggested they head back for now. She was also curious to see what would happen once she got used to the dark zone's effects. So the girls took some time to rest. They bathed and played around to relax. The next day, Maho suddenly screamed at the top of her lungs. She had just lifted a bike like it was nothing. Surprised, she asked what was going on. Fiona, who had just woken up because of the scream, said it must be the dungeon acclimatization. She explained that they could check Maho's acclimatization level at a temple if they ever made it out of the dungeon. That's when Maho realized she was now strong enough to swing weapons and fight. She promised to take down the monsters. Fiona, however, wasn't sure if they could handle the monsters on the new floor they had found. Then, Maho showed her something. Fiona thought it was some kind of sword training tool. But Maho said it was actually a real piece of lighting equipment, something used for outdoor construction. It gave off a lot of light and they had an unlimited supply. That meant they could keep going, using the lights to guide them through the darkness. The girls placed one of the lights on the dark ground. Fiona was still amazed because even powerful magicians couldn't make this much light. Maho suggested setting up more, so they both continued placing outdoor lights around. Maho said there wasn't much to see except darkness. Fiona warned her to stay alert in case there were traps. Maho said she would be careful and promised to check above, but she forgot to watch her step. Before she could react, Maho slipped and stayed completely silent. Fiona quickly rushed over and grabbed her arm just in time. She reminded Maho again to be careful. While hanging, Maho apologized. She realized that when someone is really close to dying, they might not even be able to scream. It felt way too early for them to experience a death flag. At first, Fiona thought it was a simple pitfall trap, but it turned out to be a huge chasm. They couldn't see the bottom, so it didn't seem like they could go down safely. Maho told Fiona to watch her step. Fiona asked if she was really that scared. Maho admitted that bottomless pits made her feel terrified without even thinking about it. Fiona was surprised, then started to laugh a little. Maho asked why. Fiona said she didn't expect Maho to act that way. It was kind of cute. Maho said scary things were just scary, and reminded her she was an ordinary girl in the first place. But Fiona wasn't sure ordinary fit Maho at all. Maho called her mean and wondered if she really was that strange. Just then, Fiona noticed something. She pointed at the cracks in the ground. They were narrow, but it looked like they could take a detour through them. The girls soon realized the cracks formed a kind of maze. Maho thought it would be easy to get through. They could just build a bridge or something, but then she saw something far away. Fiona asked what was wrong. Maho pointed across the cliff. She thought she saw something big over there. Fiona looked too, but her view wasn't clear. Maho pointed at a strange bumpy spot and said it looked like a giant gecko. And she was right. It was a huge lizard clinging to the cliff. Fiona quickly grabbed Maho and ran out of the doorway. Maho said they didn't need to run, but Fiona shouted that scary things were still scary. Maho felt like she had seen this kind of thing before. The lizard seemed to be alone, but it was about 5 meters long. If they tried to pass over it, it might bite them. Maho thought they needed to deal with it from their side. But Fiona reminded her they couldn't reach it well enough to attack directly. Not long after, the giant lizard slipped off the cliff. The girls cheered. Whatever they used had worked. Maho felt worried for a second, but she was glad their plan succeeded. She felt a little bad about hurting such an amazing creature, but it was something they had to do to survive. She hoped the gecko would forgive them. May the gecko rest in peace.